Hi, everybody, and welcome to Heel Heat. My name is George Coles, and on this episode, we're doing How I Would Have Booked. The topic for this How I Would Have Booked: pro wrestlers cast as X-Men. And what we're doing here is combining two of my loves, the X-Men comic books and pro wrestling, and putting them into one thing. If you follow along with Marvel and their comings and goings, they're slowly introducing mutants into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which means we're going to get an X-Men reboot at some point, and we're going to have all new X-Men. Because of that, it kind of gave me this idea, a little bit different. Let me know if you like it, if you enjoy this. Maybe we'll continue with other comic book groups. But with that being said, let's get right into it. Professional wrestlers I would cast as X-Men. First up, you have to have the leader and creator of the X-Men, Professor Charles Xavier. This was kind of a hard one to cast, mostly because you're wanting to look for someone that's a little bit older than the rest of the cast, that has that power, that you could still believe in, that has a presence. If you think of the X-Men movies, look at Patrick Stewart and how great he was in that role, or even the X-Men cartoons and how great the Professor Xavier was there. So the person that lives up to that has a big shoes to fill. With that being said, I kind of went a little bit outside of the box on this pick. It's someone I think could fit perfectly. They have the bald head. They're definitely intellectually able to pull it off. As a wrestler, they haven't been presented seriously, but I definitely think they could pull this character off. And that's Titus O'Neil. Now, I know what you'll say, Titus, he's performed as comedy, but if you've listened to any of his charity work or his public speaking, you could definitely tell he's a highly intelligent man. He has a presence about him. He's a guy that brings that authoritative role out. You want to listen to him. He kind of reminds me of a football coach or a basketball coach. Someone that you just want to rally behind. And those are the qualities I was looking for when I was thinking for Professor Xavier. I think Titus O'Neil would be a great Professor Xavier, and I think he's a great part for this role. I would love to see him as that. Now, next up on the lineup, we're going to knock out the most famous X-Man of all time, and probably one of the more controversial picks that I'll have on here, Wolverine, and I'm going with Davey Richards. Now, the reason I picked Davey Richards, we need a wrestler that's a little bit shorter. Hugh Jackman doesn't portray it as well in the live-action movies, but Wolverine in the comics books is a shorter guy. So I wanted to go with a wrestler that wasn't 6 foot. That was a little bit smaller, but still had a build to him, still looked like he could pull it off, and had a little bit of that edge to him. Ultimately, when I came down to this, it came down between Davey Richards and Bryan Danielson. And my thinking of it was, even though Wolverine is so lovable, you have to portray that hard-edged, battle-tested, cynical side of him as well. I think Davey Richards pulls that off better than Bryan Danielson. Not that I don't love Bryan Danielson. If you were to ask me who I'd rather watch wrestle, it's going to be Bryan Danielson. But I just think that Davey Richards has that fit for being the Wolverine character. He almost has modeled himself in a way to be the Wolverine in a pro wrestling ring already. Now, next up, we're going to throw a softball, Storm. Now, for Storm, we needed someone that could present themselves as a queen with a fantastic figure, with muscle tone and development, an aura of being a regal presence, someone that could pull off that character. And this is probably the easiest pick on the list, Jade Cargill. When Jade Cargill dyes her hair blonde or platinum or even silver, she already looks like Storm. She has that believability to her. You want someone that could carry over that they're a leader, where Jade Cargill is a leader in the AEW women's division. She has a no-nonsense attitude. She's rough. She could be called on to lead the team if she has to. She could be a secondary player if she has to. She won't take a backseat to anybody, much like the Jade Cargill character herself. This is, to me, a no-brainer. This is a perfect fit. This is a square peg going into a square hole. Now, going from that, our de facto leader of the X-Men, Cyclops. For Cyclops, I wanted someone where the fans would gravitate to him, that the fans would love him. And there was also that high school jock, letterman, most popular kid in the school aspect to him, where you loved and respected him, but you also kind of felt like he could be a jerk at times. For that, I think the perfect fit would be the American Nightmare, Cody Rhodes. Rhodes. Cody's a guy that the wrestling fans are going to get behind, that they love. He's also shown in the past where he has that snark ability to him, where he can turn it on just like that and have the fans turn against him. Much like Cyclops, I think Cody's a guy that in the movie he'd be able to portray being able to make a hard decision that's best for the team without caring about his popularity. And that's what I think of when I think of Cody Rhodes. I think of a leader. I think of a guy that's there to make the hard decisions. That's why I think he's perfect for Cyclops. Now, you can't have Cyclops without Jean Grey. Jean has been portrayed as everything in the movies. The Phoenix Saga has been in 2 different movies. You need someone that could pull off that they're a little bit mentally unstable, while also pulling off that they're one of the most powerful mutants in the universe. For that, I'm picking Becky Lynch. Normally I wouldn't go with Becky with this because of the strong accent, but I've watched her on The Young Rock, and I've watched her portray Cyndi Lauper. And if she could hide her accent to play Cyndi Lauper, she could hide her accent for Jean Grey. Much like Jean Grey, I could see her as the woman that every woman in the group looks up to, one of the leaders of the group, one of the stalwarts, all while being a woman that both Cyclops and Wolverine fall in love with. I could easily see that for Becky Lynch. She's a beautiful woman with a ton of confidence, a ton of ability, and when she needs to, like we've seen with the Big Time Bex version, she could pull off a little bit of that crazy if necessary. I think this is a perfect pick for Jean Grey. I'd love to see the man play the Phoenix. Now, next up, another one that's probably an easy fit, Colossus. What I needed for Colossus was a big, monstrous guy that looked the part, but also felt like somebody the fans could get behind. Who better to play that than Brock Lesnar? I'm going to tell you right now, if we're talking scariest humans, Brock Lesnar is probably one of the top 10 scariest humans walking the planet right now. I mean, there's very few other people in the world I would like to see mad at me than Brock Lesnar. Maybe Mike Tyson, John Jones, Minoru Suzuki. There's very few people that are looked at like that. However, he has that charisma to him as well. He has the ability to make you care about him, to make you love him. Something that I think Colossus needs. Something where I think has not been expounded as much in the movies. They did a fantastic job with Colossus in the Deadpool movie, but I don't think it's been expanded upon as much as they could, that humanitarian side of him. I think Brock could pull that off. And just for the sheer fact that he's a monster, and you need a monster for the role, that's why I picked Brock. Now, keeping on our big monstrous guys, Beast. We need someone that's going to come off as very intelligent. Although, unlike Professor Xavier, we need somebody that's also going to be large in stature. The perfect person, in my opinion, is Keith Lee. Keith Lee's interviews sound like you're listening to Masterpiece Theater or a book on tape. It's one of the classics of all time. I could easily see him doing an audiobook for A Tale of Two Cities or a Shakespearean play. The guy just has that almost Fraser Crane-like dialogue to him where he sounds smart and he sounds intelligent and he sounds like a gentle giant. These are all the characteristics I need for my Beast character. For that, I'm going with Keith Lee. Next up, Nightcrawler. For Nightcrawler, we needed someone. First, I thought about it. We need someone that's German. Well, I didn't quite find anybody that fit him. We also needed someone that was aerobatic while still having a great physique. A couple people I considered Ricochet for this, but I went with Pac. And the reason I went with Pac is because he does have that British accent, which you can easily kind of morph a bit into a German accent. He's extremely talented when it comes to aerobatics. I think he can pull off doing a lot of his own stunts that were needed for the Nightcrawler role. I think he'd be great in the role. I think it would be a fantastic fit for him. That's why I put him in here. Next up, Gambit. For Gambit, I needed someone with a mischievous side and also had to be someone from New Orleans. Now, I've stretched for some people like Colossus not having a Russian for him, or Nightcrawler not having a German for him. But Gambit, I feel like the New Orleans part of it is so much of his character that you needed to have that in there. And who better for Gambit than Ricky Starks? Ricky Starks, in my opinion, has that capability to pull off a mischievous, somewhat devious character, all with a wink and a nod that makes you still fall in love with him. He's from New Orleans, so he definitely has that part in there. I think Ricky would be perfect for the role. especially if you look at it, if they split these off into solo movies. Could you see Ricky Starks playing Gambit for a whole movie? I definitely could, and hence that's why he's my pick to play Gambit. Now, much like Cyclops and Jean Grey, you can't have Gambit without having Rogue. My pick for Rogue, I needed someone that was going to pull off charm, someone that was going to pull off the sultry looks of Rogue, someone that looked good with red hair dye, someone I could think of as a tortured soul, and for that, I picked Scarlett Bordeaux. Scarlett, to me, embodies much of the same characteristics that Rogue has. She's a beautiful woman. She knows how to manipulate people to make them do what she wants. She has that believability, and I think she has a character work where she can pull off the fact that she has that inner turmoil with herself where if she touches someone, she could kill them. I think Scarlett has the capability to pull that off. For that reason, I definitely think she would fit the role. I think she definitely deserves to be here. Next up, Kitty Pryde. One of my personal favorite X-Men. When I started reading comic books, she was very new to the comic books, and I kind of grew with her character. In a way, she was a younger version in the X-Men, so she's someone I really enjoyed, and I really spoke to me, especially being a preteen and a teen, seeing a teenager, and a lot of these people have been portrayed as anywhere from teens to young adults, but Kitty Pryde, for the most part, is always portrayed as a teenager slash very young adult. For that, we needed someone with a youthful energy, with a exuberance and an excitement for the world. I'm picking Roxanne Perez. To me, no one in pro wrestling says youthful exuberance more than Roxanne Perez. She's already one of the top women's wrestlers in the WWE, and I think she's only 21, maybe 22. She's very young, and she looks even younger than she is. Much like AJ Lee did, AJ Lee never looked to be more than a 16, 17-year-old woman, so there was always that look to her. Kind of what I'm leaning with here on Roxanne Perez. Can she pull off the Kitty Pryde? Would you believe her as someone that was a kid in 2023? You definitely would. I could see her being the one in there with a Olivia Rodrigo shirt, or I could see her pulling off being the X-Man that does TikTok videos. It makes perfect sense. She feels like she's tied to youth culture of this time. That's why I think she'd be perfect for the character. Now, last but not least, and I could probably go on because there's hundreds of people that have been X-Men, but I think this is my last of what I would consider the more important X-Men, Iceman. For Iceman, I needed a couple things. First off, he's recently came out in the comics books as being gay, so I did want to make a concerted effort to put a gay wrestler into that role. Not that it wasn't a necessary thing, but I thought it was important to have that representation. A couple other things I like to think of with Iceman, he does need to have a silly side to him, a more prankster side, and there was a few people I thought of, but one that definitely shot up to the top of my thoughts, and that's Anthony Bowens. Anthony Bowens, to me, one of the most popular people at AEW at this time, kind of gives me the same vibes that Iceman does as part of the X-Men. He feels like he fits that same role. He feels like a similar character. Now, of course, he can't turn his body into ice, but I feel like he has that in him. I feel like the inner turmoil that we've seen in Iceman, especially in recent years, we know that that's something that's a real-life thing for Anthony Bowens. So I feel like he could portray that very well. I think he would make a perfect fit for Iceman, thus rounding out my list of the X-Men. So let me know, what do you guys think? Do you like my list? Do you think I miscast somebody? Is there a different person you would cast in one of these roles? Let me know down here in the comments. If you'd like to see more of this, if you'd like to see maybe me make the Fantastic Four as pro wrestlers, or the Justice League as pro wrestlers, or even maybe go on the evil side and do the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants as wrestlers. Let me know that down here in the comments as well, if you'd like to see me do more things like this. Kind of a neat little thing I just thought of and threw together. With all that being said, smash that like button, share the video, subscribe. My name is George Coles, and this has been another episode of How I Would Have Booked.